Hello, and welcome to Chinwag. I'm Kim from Pooches Galore.
Hello, I'm Carla at Complete Canine.
And today we are talking about one of my pet hates. Feel like I might get on a soapbox. Um, which is why positive reinforcement is not bribing your dog to do stuff.
Yeah,
And if you
it's
are doing that, then you're doing it wrong.
yeah, it's really funny, isn't it? That it's quite often the why you shouldn't use kind methods is because
Yes.
you are bribing your dog.
Yes.
It's like no,
No, I'm
no,
definitely
no.
reinforcing a behavior. And we are
Yeah,
going to tell you the difference and tweaks that you can make to go from bribing your dog to reinforcing. It's quite
yeah,
subtle, but it's a definite distinction.
hmm, absolutely.
Right, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, yeah, this is one of my pet hates. So,
So what's bribery? What's bribery?
so for me, bribery is showing your dog the treat to
Hmm.
get them to do a behavior rather than reinforcing, like rewarding them for doing a behavior.
Hmm.
And that definition then falls down because you use a treat to lure a dog into a position as well. So
Yeah.
it's that bit, isn't it, between you've shown the dog, like let's use sit as an example. You
Hmm.
can use the treat to lure the dog into a sit, and then when their bum hits the floor, you reward them. But you want to fade that out pretty quick, and
Yeah.
then you don't want the dog to need to see the treat to do the sit.
No.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite hard to explain without showing somebody,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it? The
really is.
difference.
As I'm
Yeah.
using my hand on the
You're
screen for
using your
people.
hand and I'm following it.
Yes, as people are listening on their podcast. But yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it's if your dog will only do something because they can see the treat,
Hmm.
then it's fallen down in the middle somewhere. And then I think you are bribing your dog a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you start without the treat and you'll be like, sit. And they won't do it. And then you're like, fine, I'll get a treat. And
Yeah.
now they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. That's a good telltale sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you, if you, I think reward markers make a huge difference in this for me
Yes.
because if you are, I don't know how to say this for it to make sense without me waving my hands around.
Okay.
Um,
We can get
if
through this. We
you,
can do this.
if you have a treat in your hand ready to feed your dog and you're doing your luring, you're doing your whatever, you are saying to your dog, here's the thing. If you interact with it,
Yeah.
if you follow the thing, just the thing, nothing else but the thing, and you do that, then we're going to give you the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if you're using things like reward markers and clickers and stuff for positive reinforcement, so basically to tell your dog that reinforcement rewards on its way, your dog will offer the behavior when you ask of it because you've taught it in whatever way you've taught it. And then they will hear the reward marker, and the reward marker will be like, they'll be like, oh, I've just done the activity.
Yeah.
I've already done the activity. And then after that, someone's going to say, you did really well.
Yeah.
Here's a really high value thing. And then because you've done that so many times, the dog's then like, okay, I feel positively about doing
Yeah.
this activity, so I'm probably going to do it again in the future. It's worth doing it. And you don't, then in the future reps, you don't have that treat there. So
Yeah.
you're not bribing. You've taught with positive reinforcement. That's the method because
Yes.
you've told your dog, well done. What an
Yeah.
awesome experience there. What an awesome behavior. You're going to get reinforced for doing it. And the reinforcement is the you going reward, 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 reward after, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
So to get, I know I like to get technical, but
Go.
it so you've got your ABCs of behavior, which is your antecedent, which is your setting event. So that could be a
Mm.
cue, like sit.
Yep.
Then you've got your behavior, which is the dog's bum hits the floor. And then you have your consequence, which is the reward.
Mm-hmm.
If the reward has to fall into the antecedent,
Mm-hmm.
bribe.
Yes, that's a perfect way of putting it.
That's it
Yeah.
in a slightly techie, dog trainery geeky kind of way of. But if the behavior will only occur
Mm.
because the treat is part of that antecedent, part of that setting event, then you've
Yeah.
taught, then you're bribe, then the dog is asking for that bribe.
Yeah.
If
Sure.
your dog should want to do the behavior. The positive reinforcement is for me is more of a feeling whether it's a good feeling around food, whether it's play, whether it's fuss, it's creating a good feeling within the dog. That's the positive reinforcement, like in a nutshell, isn't it? All of the positive reinforcement is making the dog feel better, feeling good in some way. So that should always be the consequence, and it should all sit by itself.
And it's like, you know, they're both perhaps parts of training dogs without force or fear. Both of those things, like bribery will sit somewhere within that category.
100%.
They're just different things. They're different things in their own way, aren't they? So,
but if you think about it from like loose lead walking, so I use treats for rewarding a dog when they're walking in the right position. If your dog will only walk in the right position when you hold a treat in your left hand on the same side of the dog, are they learning in that point, or are you bribing them to stay there?
Exactly. So we call it the magnet hand, or luring with your hand. So that is a training method. And it's perfectly plausible, but it is bribery if your dog's nose is following the treat. And you might at some point then take the treat out of your hand and use the same hand positioning that we, you know, sometimes do. It becomes a target maybe, or something like that. And then it then doesn't become bribery anymore. But if we were to train it, so I like training using shaping or loose lead walking, and I like using a clicker if I can, if people can use them.
Because it can get a lot, can't it, with the food and the clicker and the lead and everything. It can become a lot of things.
I like using it for high drive dogs because I find they're quite responsive to clicker training. So what I would do instead is I would probably throw a free treat down on the floor. The free treat is not bribery. The free treat is a reset. It's a free treat. It's nothing more than that. And it sets the dog up wherever I want them to start, so that they're set up to get into the position that I want them in on their own, without me having to use a bribe, a treat, whatever, because that's what they're going to do. So you throw a treat just behind. When your dog reaches the point within that 1 meter bubble, or wherever you're using where they come on in, I would use my reward marker. So I'll go, that's a good behavior. That's what I want to see. And then you throw the treat on the floor as reward. So there is no bribery in there. The dog might think, oh, hold on, a few times now when I've come into this place, there's been a treat somewhere around on offer. They might go in anticipation of that, but you are not using it in front of your dog to focus on to do something.
No. And I think that's the difference, is it when you become reliant on it, that when your dog becomes reliant on seeing the treat, then you're probably crossing over from what you wanted to do, where you want your dog to be able to do, because ultimately we want our dogs to do 90% of behaviors without a reward, whether that is your loose lead walking, whether that's your recall, your sit. You know, I couldn't tell you the last time I rewarded Stan for a sit. Like it just should become automatic. The positive reinforcement is the learning bit. I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've asked him to sit for something and then given him something. I'm sure, but it hasn't been like an. And for recall's the one that, and leave it are the ones I keep my reinforcement rate up quite high. But he doesn't get rewarded every time he comes back to me.
No.
And he doesn't need to see a treat. I could go out without any treats and it would be fine. So I think that's where it starts to tip over as well, from oh, I did that and I got a treat, to I'll only do that if I see a treat.
Yeah, and that's a whole pennies in the jar thing, isn't it? With sit and with recall words, the things that you use the most, that you put the most pennies in the jar of reinforcing positively. So treats for having done the activity. There's an amount, isn't there? There's a number for this.
Probably.
I can't remember what it is. There's a few different things on there. So say, for example, your dog in the last however so long has done 2,000 sits and you've treated every single one of them. The likelihood that your dog's just going to start sitting automatically for things, because it's so well reinforced and they've got such good experience and memories, positive memories of doing it, that of course they're going to choose it. That is positive reinforcement. And you don't need to have your treats all the time. I'd still treat intermittently for anything and everything if I can, because I want to keep those pennies in the jar, you know, for that activity. And we know that a variable schedule of reinforcement, so not reinforcing every episode, but also not reinforcing on a schedule, so not reinforcing every third, being as variable as we can as humans, which we are terrible at, is the strongest rate of reinforcement we have. That is why gambling machines are so popular and why people get so addicted to them, because it is sometimes you'll win. I don't know how they work, as I always say when I explain this. Sometimes you win £1,
Sometimes you win more, sometimes you win the jackpot, but you will keep putting your pound back into the machine because that variable rate of reinforcement is the strongest. It's the one that drives the addictions. So we can do that with our dogs as well. The difference between a lure and a bribe is that we use the lure to generally encourage a dog into a position. So if we were doing a sit, we would take it over the top of the dog's head, makes them look up, bum often hits the ground, mark and reward. But we do want to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And it's making sure that we're, as you know, as soon as we go, okay, they can do it now, let's do the same hand action, no treat, mark and reward. But if your dog's, well, when people say, oh, they'll do it, but they'll only do it if I've got a treat, I'm like, okay, we need to wind this back.
So I've got a really good a good example of where this might come into play, actually. And that's when your dog is outside in the garden and you need to call them in, and dogs that don't like coming in. So you have a lot of people who need to get the treat tin out and shake it and show the dog that they're doing it. And the dog goes, all right, then I'll come in now. That's fine. All right. And it works for a lot of dogs, and it's fine. It's not like a problem. It's not a behaviour problem. But if you wanted to come away from that, what you could do instead is you could mat train. You mat train your dog and you cue them, that every time they've been in the garden, they come in and they do this process every time there's a routine. The routine becomes solid and it's so positively reinforced that they come in and they go on the mat so that you can wipe the paws or whatever, and then they get treat on the mat, that you don't need to do the bribery. And the problem is the bribes get less valuable. So you're going to have to keep increasing the value of your bribe to make it worth it for your dog. Whereas if you go for a pattern of reinforcement, your dog actually will end up not needing to have the treat over time at all, because it will just be behaviour.
And also, it will depend on how reinforcing the environment is as well. So if there's something interesting in your garden, a squirrel, a mouse, a cat's walked through, that the reinforcement of finding that, smelling that, whatever your dog is doing, if that's more reinforcing than the mealy treats you've got in a tin that you just use to shake, that the dog knows that they get every time, that's going to decrease in value. And then what have you got? Because if your magic shaky tin isn't working, have you seen those tins that you can buy that have got dog treats in it? They are like, you're supposed to like rattle them and then the dog will come running and get a treat. Essentially, they've capitalized on that.
You can buy a tin that makes the noise of a tin
shaking. You buy a tin.
I was like, that's really silly.
Wowza. We're playing a recording of a tin rattling. No, it's a tin.
I was like, why?
It's a tin that on it says it's like a positive reinforcement rattle tin rather than a positive punishment rattle tin. People capitalize on anything. But the other way that this works as well is when I work with dogs who are worried about other dogs or people, and we'll play the look at that game. So the dog will look at the dog from a distance that they're comfortable with, and then we'll mark and reward the calm behavior, reward that. Builds a good conditioned emotional response. It's a nice gentle way of introducing other things. And then people will say, oh yeah, I distracted them past the dog, and it makes like my toes curl, because I'm like, if you're distracting them past, you're bribing them and you're not doing your training. Sorry to anyone listening who's said that, but it is true. It has to be that we mark the behavior that we want and then we get a reinforcement. Sometimes I will say, let's use a nose bag of treats, let's get some treats in our hand right on your dog's nose, and we're going to literally move them out of this situation because we can't train. It's too much, it's overwhelming. That's different. Like sometimes we have to get our dogs out of situations, and we will use anything, nose bag of treats, get them out of there as quickly as possible. But when we're actively in the moment of training, they see the dog, we mark and reward that behavior. We're not using the treat so that they don't see the dog and don't react.
And that's the key difference there. So on our Treetops Hub, we've got training exercises for counter conditioning and getting them looking at things, getting them desensitized to things, and that is the training and the behavior modification. And then we have a whole list of emergency exits of exercises you can do that are like that are magnet hands, that are U-turns, whatever, where you are like, this is not a training scenario, we've got to get out of the situation.
We just need to get out.
So it's nice to see the difference between the
Yeah.
two of those things. And sometimes it's okay to use the emergencies.
Yeah, exactly
100%.
what I was about to say. Like, we don't want to put our dogs in situations that they can't cope with just because it doesn't fit with our beautiful ABC of positive reinforcement. But we want to use those as little as possible because we're not teaching our dogs necessarily anything in that moment. We might be teaching them that we're safe and that we can manage it for them, but I don't know how much our dogs take on board from that. But we definitely want to be in a place where we can make sure that they are learning. And if they can't do that, then yes, totally have to get them out of the situation.
Yeah, and we're sort of bridging the gap a little bit with Fergus, so he's a Bavarian mountain hound. He's a beautiful boy, and he's going through adolescence at the minute. So other male dogs can be a little bit of a problem for him. But so we went to quite a busy place the other day, busier than I thought it would be for the training session. And he was
It's always fun as a trainer, isn't it? When you turn and be like,
fun. Yeah, but he did really well. But there was one dog off lead on a canal path, obviously.
Of course.
And he came up and it was a male dog, and we did the whole relax lead thing. And it was, I could stick a treat in front of his face, but at the minute I just need to not put any pressure on this dog.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah, and this other dog stopped and went away, and then Fergie did his little brrr like that, and then came away and was fine. And the gap that we needed to bridge is that Mum was quite panicky in a lot of those situations because she didn't want him to be stressed or there to be an altercation. So she was very much trying to just get out of situations as quick as possible. Yeah. Okay, fine. If you don't feel confident, then that's good to do. But for us to bridge that gap between him being okay with dogs being at a distance and maybe crossing paths a little bit, but him also not being okay with them being right up at him and then in this stress of getting out, we can bridge that gap with something like a pattern game. Where we can move him through. He's not staring at the food, but there's something that he can put his emotions into where he knows the outcome of it. So it's not a bribe, but it's something's going to come the end of this. Yeah, for you. Yeah,
totally. It's important to have. It's the same with like a leave it, isn't it? If you're asking your dog to leave chips that are on the floor, if your leave it fails and they eat the chips, I'm not saying it's ideal, but it's unlikely to cause you a problem. In a healthy dog. And so you could test your training, you could say leave it. If they leave it, you could reward them. Like it's all going to be okay. I couldn't leave chips if someone asked me to, so it's a big ask for me. But whereas
Depends. If sweet potato fries.
Oh no, they're the worst of all the chips. No. Gross. I love sweet potatoes. Hate sweet potato fries. No, give me a good old fashioned chunky chip any day. Triple cooked if I've got the option. Might have chips for tea actually. Anyway, that's because I'm hungry. I should never record podcasts when I'm hungry. So I always think about food. So so if you're asking your dog to leave one thing, and if it went wrong, the world wasn't going to end, then you can do that. But if you were asking your dog to leave something that's dangerous, that you drop some tablets or something on the floor, then that's when you would go, actually, I need to use food to prevent something serious happening. And it's different situations. But when we're looking at a kind of training situation and we're looking at working with our dog to improve things, we have to be careful about when we use our positive reinforcement, when we use our lure, and when we phase that out. And we need to get rid of it as quickly as possible, because that, I think, is the bit, if you keep that lure in for too long, your dog becomes reliant upon it. You want to do it 2 or 3 times, and then if you can get rid of it, phase it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's it.
Or you can even phase it out by using a lower value treat, like a bit of kibble, and then reward them with something higher out of your other hand, and then you can phase it out. So if you are struggling to phase it out, I'm thinking about like our Labrador owners who the dog's like, oh, the treat's gone. I can't do anything now. That's like a nice phased approach as well to ensuring that we're phasing stuff out. And the other one is not using food. It's so much easier to do positive reinforcement without bribing if you are not using food. Yeah. Food's like an easy cheat, isn't it, almost?
If your dog's a real foodie, it definitely is an easy cheat. Yeah. There's so many things that you can use that are not treats that could also be bribes, I guess.
You could hold the
But
toy, couldn't you? You could
yeah,
hold the toy and be like, if you come back to me, we'll play with the toy. So yeah, you can, but
yeah. Or recall him
sniffing.
to fuss, like if you want to cuddle, come on, come to me, come to me. Yeah, if you come to me, yeah, good. And then you can have the fuss. Otherwise, you're not going to have it. You could make
No, but that's still
bribery out of
positive.
anything.
But that's still positive reinforcement. If you come to me, you get the reward. If you were
Yeah,
like, I don't know, using your hands as a kind of,
you can go, oh, God, God.
yeah, people can't see that on the podcast, Carla.
Well,
They can just
I'm
hear your
hoping
silly
you can
voice.
hear. You'll have to watch the video as well, then I guess.
But yeah, it's about the dog needing to see the thing before, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the other side of things for me is that people then are saying that I don't want to use food at all with my dog because they should just do the thing. So any food at all
Well,
is bribery and just they should just do it. It's
I
like, well, I get paid for working.
yeah, I
I'm
really
not
like
gonna
my job. I'm really
yeah.
fortunate. I have the job of my dreams. I still have to be paid for it, unfortunately.
Yeah. To make
Yeah.
me to make me continue to love it,
Yeah.
still needs to pay for my
I
roof
still
over
have
my
to
head.
eat. Yeah, that's how I always break it down.
Mm.
And I think the other flip side, I don't know how many flip sides this thing can have, but on another
Mm.
is things like pet corrector spray,
Yeah.
where the dog only has to see the pet corrector to stop the
Mm.
behavior. It's I don't know if you would class that as a bribe, but it's
No, so I was about to ask you if people think positive reinforcement is bribery, is negative reinforcement, positive punishment, are they the right ones? Are they blackmail?
well, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because a number of people will say, oh, well, they did chew the skirting board, but now I only have to show them the pet corrector spray and they
Yeah.
stop. And I'm like, but they haven't learned anything there, have they? They've learned not to do that behavior in the presence of the pet corrector spray.
Yeah. So
They
that's a
haven't,
threat. That's a
yeah,
threat and it's blackmail.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or if the dog can feel the prongs of the prong collar or the like the electrodes of the shock collar, they stop doing the behavior. I don't need to shock them anymore. Yeah, but if they weren't wearing it,
Yeah.
do they still perform the new behavior?
Yeah.
Or do they associate that feeling with, if I do that behavior in the presence of this collar, something bad will happen to me, so I just won't do it. Have they learned?
Yeah. And you like, well, or like I know that if I've done something, if I've gone and done an activity and I've got something from it, whether it's like my endorphin hit or whether it's a cake afterwards or whatever, or I've had a really good laugh or it's been positively reinforcing for me, I am definitely going to go do that thing again.
Totally.
Because I want to, not because someone has blackmailed me or forced me or made me scared of not doing it, like the dentist. No. Right?
Yes.
If you don't go, then your teeth are going to fall out.
Yeah, it's
like,
not good. It's not ideal.
No.
Suboptimal.
Well, if you don't pay your tax, then you're gonna get like.
Well, so I go to a running group in the morning, and it's at 6 a.m. It's brutally early. And I have to get up at like 5:10 for it because I have to have coffee before. This morning, I think I've done like 4 this week, so I'm flagging I've done 3. I was flagging by this morning, but Friday is coffee day, so we run and then we have coffee. If we didn't have that coffee today, I definitely wouldn't have run. Is that bribery or is that reinforcement?
But it makes you, well, both. But
I guess it
makes you
buy coffee at any point. But yeah.
It makes the experience beforehand better and more likely to be done. Yeah. Which means it is positive reinforcement.
Yeah. And I would have probably got up and done it anyway, even if there wasn't coffee. But the coffee helped today. It was a necessary part of my morning routine. Yeah,
I can't taste it properly, so it's really ruining
I hate
me
that. That's the worst thing about having a cold.
Yeah.
I remember when I had COVID, like the first time when it was quite not serious, but more intense, maybe. I don't know what the word is. And I lost my sense of taste and smell completely.
Oh my God.
And I remember having a coffee and it just felt like hot and thick and it was vile. Just was so weird not being able to taste it.
I think that's where I'm at. And I've also bought a different milk because it didn't have my milk that I had normally at the shop, and it's thrown it all out of whack.
Oh no.
It's not the same.
That's not ideal.
No. Stop making me want a coffee right now.
No, I don't drink a lot of it, but when I've got a cold, because I need the caffeine because I'm very addicted. I'll have a Diet Coke because I like the fizziness of it, and then it's got the caffeine hit as well.
Oh, you've just sold that. Guess where I'm going.
It's my it's my go-to. After a very long run, I always have a Diet Coke. We all know that. And we also when I have a cold.
And a Mackey's.
And a Mackey's, always a Mackey's. Carla and I did a run in Northumberland. It was a half marathon, and we were driving back through like the most beautiful but barren landscape ever. And I was like, oh, I really want a McDonald's. And then you disappeared on your phone. You're like, there is one 10 minutes away. And I was like, how is that possible?
It was the best 5 minutes of my life.
It's so good. So good. It just has everything you need in it. It has the carbs, the sugar, the fat, the protein, and then the fizzy Diet Coke. But yeah, it's always a Diet Coke for me. Diet Coke. I think I've got my Twister in the freezer from Sunday. I don't think I ate it. I'm
not massively into ice lollies.
I'm not. I'm really not. But after a long run, especially when it's hot, I go to the Co-op. I have a Twister, which was always my favorite ice lolly pre-becoming vegan. And then I discovered that they are vegan. So now I have a Twister and a kind of Diet Coke.
All the sugar.
I think it's more the cold, the limey, and then the fizz and the caffeine. And John knows now, my other half. I quite often he'll be like, "I've been to the shop, don't panic." My Twister and Diet Coke are waiting for me.
I like that. Woman of habit.
I know. Sometimes I fancy crisps. Sometimes I definitely need the salt. It's weird how your body goes, we need crisps.
It knows exactly what you need.
Yeah, it does. It's very clever. It's very, very clever. Yeah. Mine always needs caffeine. Always.
Addict.
Not had caffeine for about an hour. So if we could resolve that problem, that would be great. Thank you. The other day, we have converted our garage into like a little gym, very like over about four years. It's been an ongoing project. And I had to go and do a weight session, which as a runner, it's not my favorite, but it's a necessary evil. It's supposed to stave off injury, she says, sitting here very injured. And I was like, can I make a coffee? Is it weird to drink a coffee and do your weight session at the same time? Is essentially what I'm asking the people.
No, because I used to do that when I used to go to PT sessions. Yeah, I'd have coffee. Better.
I just felt like it was a bit weird.
I'd need a wee halfway through, but it would help. Definitely. Yeah.
I was like, is it weird? Take a cup of tea in with me? And
no, not at all.
No, I did think I did. But then I was like, I just really need to sort myself out and get the session done. And then as a reward, I can have my coffee.
Yeah. Like if you ran with a
a nice coffee.
I was thinking more like in your little drink flask thing, if you had like a proper hot latte in it or something. That'd be weird.
That would be weird. I was thinking more of an iced coffee. I could do that.
You could do that. It's a lot of milk.
It is a lot of milk. I don't think my body would really respond well to it.
No.
My husband's running a 100-mile race, and we've been going through his fueling. So when you run ultra, I know you know, Carla, but other people might not be aware of idiotic runs that people do. When you run ultras, the trick is that you start running, you start eating, and when you finish running, you stop eating. It's essentially how much food can you consume whilst you're running. Just don't stop eating, because as soon as you stop eating, your stomach goes, can't eat, and then you're in trouble. And so we've been coming up with these lists. He's got like vegan sausage rolls, cheese and Marmite sandwiches, full picnic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. But
that's
you just have to keep eating.
Food.
Yeah,
I like
we've been
I like my I do my little potatoes. Don't
you do your salty potatoes? I have told him about the salty potatoes.
They're so good. Salty potatoes. And then when I did Morocco, because I had to take everything on the plane and stuff. Of course,
yeah. You can't be in your hotel room cooking your potatoes.
No, I know. We did was it pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds, and I roasted them in oil and salt, and they were a really good calorie thing. Yeah.
It's just whether if you get to a point when you've been running for so long, like the thought of the seeds like crunching, and I don't know if I could. Yeah. Like the potatoes are good. Anyway, we've really gone off topic now. So there you go. That's bribery and reinforcement for you.
We talk about food
and an insight into how our normal conversations go when we forget that we're being recorded.
Yeah, Sorry.
Fab. All right. Well, I hope that clarified stuff on how you know where you're at and how to get from one to the other.
Yeah, no bribery.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.